The mission is simple: to help high achievers naturally eliminate emotional and physical obstacles so they can optimize their life for higher achievement. Welcome. You have just entered the Genesis Zone. Good day, and welcome to the Genesis Zone show. This is Dr. Brian Brown. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. If you're first time joining us, just know that we're glad to have you here. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for your input, your questions that you ask. Always get great questions after the show and great comments. I really appreciate that. So we're talking about sleep today, and it's not a light topic. It's a topic that for a lot of Americans is top of mind. So stay tuned to the end, where I will give you a very specific technique that you can do starting tonight that will get you back sleeping quickly if you wake up in the middle of the night or you're having trouble falling asleep. If you're an adult, there have probably been some times in your life when you've had issues with either falling asleep or staying asleep, or in many cases, both of those. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 1/3 of Americans report not getting enough sleep on a regular basis. In other words, tens of millions of people don't have an official diagnosis of insomnia, but they have symptoms consistent with chronic insomnia. Now, what is chronic insomnia? Well, chronic insomnia refers to difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep for at least 3 nights per week for about 3 months or longer. And about 6 to 10% of adults carry an official diagnosis for chronic insomnia. Now, you see the difference there. According to the CDC, about 1/3 of the population struggle with sleep issues, but only about 6 to 10% have a diagnosis. It's because people think, well, it's always been this way. It's always going to be this way. There's not much I can do. I don't know that I really want to take a sleep medication. Anyway, we'll talk more about the pros and cons of sleep medications in a minute, because I have some personal opinions clinically about that. I've reported in previous episodes that poor sleep affects workplace performance and costs employers billions of dollars annually. In fact, according to the National Sleep Foundation, the total economic impact, and this is employers and healthcare and so on and so forth, the total economic impact of sleep problems in America is roughly around $400 billion per year. That's billion with a B, $400 billion per year. Imagine that. I mean, sleep challenges are huge, people. From a public safety standpoint, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that drowsy driving causes tens of thousands of crashes, resulting in injuries and fatalities each year. One study that I found, published about 5 months ago, revealed that when a person drives on less than 5 hours of sleep, the consequences are equal to drunk driving. In fact, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that around 20% of all vehicle crashes on our roads here in America are caused by fatigue, which has far exceeded, believe it or not, the number of alcohol-related crashes in the past 20 years, because the alcohol-related crashes, alcoholism is going down, alcohol-related driving is going down, but fatigue driving is going up. So we're seeing this crossover where alcohol-related car crashes are going down, fatigue or sleep deprivation car crashes are going up. But chronic sleep deprivation and sleep disorders can have serious health consequences too. Lack of quality sleep has been linked to various physical and mental health problems, including obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, weakened immune system, depression, anxiety, and impaired cognitive function, which brings me to the next couple of studies that I want to discuss with you. In this first study, published in the Journal of Sleep Research, and it was just published 3 days ago, researchers found that high-performance athletes, cyclists to be specific, who are sleep deprived have negative health consequences just like average people do. They found that these athletes began to have significantly diminished athletic performance, and their overall sense of well-being began to decline as well. In fact, some of the athletes began to describe themselves as depressed. The researchers concluded that sprint and endurance athletes should prioritize sleep as much as they do prioritizing their food and exercise regimens. I think most athletes that you talk to know that, but sometimes we tend to pay more attention to exercise and food than we do our sleep. I'm a stickler for sleep. I've tracked my sleep for over 5 years. I'm on top of it. I know those things that I eat and that I do in my lifestyle during my waking day that affect my sleep, because I've seen patterns in myself over time. So I know what affects my sleep and what improves my sleep. And if you're not doing it, I highly recommend this technology's been around a while. It's very high tech, but it's very low cost for what you're getting. It measures oxygen saturation. It measures movement in the night. It measures stages of sleep that you're going through. So these are important key indicators, as well as heart rate variability, that tell you how healthy your system is and how well you're resting at night and how well you're recovering for the next day. All of these things are very important to understand. In the second study that I found, and it's a pre-publication study released on the UC Berkeley website, their blog, just last week, it revealed that the link between deep wave sleep and blood sugar control was highly significant. Now, previously, researchers understood that people who didn't get good sleep did not have good blood sugar control, but they didn't understand the mechanism. This study revealed the mechanism. Now, I'm not going to get into all the dynamics and specifics of that. It's very complex, but apparently researchers understand the relationship between this deep wave sleep specifically. And there are multiple stages of sleep that we go through, deep wave sleep being one of them. But the relationship between deep wave sleep and how this can specifically regulate blood sugar. In fact, they went so far as to say in this pre-publication release that their study revealed that measuring deep wave sleep on a nightly basis can predict future blood sugar for the next day. So when you wake up, you check your data on your ring or whatever device that you're wearing, and you see that you didn't get much deep wave sleep, then you're probably going to need to do some carb control management that day, because you're going to be more prone to insulin resistance because you didn't get enough deep wave sleep. So that's a gold nugget right there. If you're not tracking your sleep and you know you have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes or blood sugar issues, or you're right there on the borderline, you should be tracking your sleep. And according to this study, be looking specifically at deep wave sleep. Now, what can we do to improve deep wave sleep? Hold on, before I get to that, researcher Dr. Matthew Walker said, and I quote, "These synchronized deep brain waves during sleep act like a finger that flips a switch," or he called it the first domino, to start an associated chain reaction from the brain down to the heart, down to the pancreas, and throughout all the cells in the body, that altered the body's regulation of blood sugar, end quote. Now, here's what I found in my years of clinical practice. No matter how good your intervention, or let's call it a treatment, is for whatever general health or functional health or mental health condition that you're treating, if a person is not sleeping well, they will not get better, period. And you may get symptom relief, but will you get complete resolution? The answer is no. And I've seen this over and over and over again. If a person is not sleeping well, you'll get the springboard effect. Symptoms will get better with the treatment or intervention that you're implementing. They'll get better, and then they'll bounce back and they'll start having problems again. Now, this may take a few weeks, it may take a few months, but they will eventually bounce in and out of the state of symptom relief and then full symptom progression, symptom relief, full symptom progression, simply because they're not sleeping well. So I know a lot of people in the functional medicine world and the alternative medicine world, they focus on gut health. Gut health is very important to focus on. We have to focus on that. But I'm telling you, if you're not sleeping like you should be, gut health, no matter what you do to try to repair that, you're always going to have issues with gut health. You have to fix your sleep. So I know what some of you may be thinking. You may be thinking, well, just prescribe them a sleep medication. Well, I hate sleep medications. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. And here's why. They disrupt deep sleep wave patterns. You heard that right. It prevents you from going into deep wave sleep. So you will hear people all the time that will say, when you prescribe a sleep medication, I slept all night long. Well, then the next golden question, and most clinicians will not ask this because they don't want to know the answer, is, did you feel rested when you woke up? And the person will stop and they'll pause and they'll think for a second and they'll say, as a matter of fact, I don't. And the reason that they don't feel rested is because they did not get the deep wave sleep. So what's the answer? How can we help this person get really good deep wave sleep? Well, there's a few things that we can do. And I'm going to preface my answer by saying that sleep is a complex structure within the body. It depends on a lot of moving parts in order for it to work right. So the answer I give is simply from my clinical experience. First of all, very simply, if you're not on a sleep or a bedtime wake pattern, you need to be consistent every single night. Your body needs routine. So if you're one of these people that has a tendency to work a 12-hour day, or you work a regular 8-hour day at the office and then you bring your work home and you're working on the computer at night, you're exposing yourself to that blue light from that computer screen, or you're binge watching Netflix and you're exposing yourself to the blue light there. This is all disrupting your brainwave patterns. Okay. It's disrupting the release of melatonin that you need in order to feel drowsy and go to sleep. It's also setting you up for failure, because when we tend to bring work home or we're doing things like binge watching TV, we lose track of time and we don't go to bed at the right time. We end up going to bed later than we expected. I know a lot of people who do this, and they'll stay up, not intending to, but they'll stay up till 11, 11:30, 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:30. And then they have to get up at 6 a.m. to get ready to go to work for their commute, whatever they've got. Or if they're working from home, they're still dragging themselves to their desk and in front of their computer, very fatigued and very tired because they're not getting enough sleep. Put yourself on a pattern. If you don't do anything else for yourself, give yourself a regular pattern of going to bed at the same time every night. And when I say the same time, within 30 minutes, okay? And go to bed at the same time every night. Wake up in the morning at the same time every single day. Yeah, even on your day of rest, or whatever that is, Saturday, Sunday, get up at the same time. It's okay to extend that by 30, 45 minutes. That's fine. But get yourself on a pattern. If I've got a person with chronic insomnia, one of the first things I do is talk to them about their sleep, their bedtime routine. And the other thing I talk to them about is I want to know what their genetic status is. How are they methylating? How are they wired to respond with neurotransmitters, which neurotransmitters control our sleep patterns? Melatonin is a neurotransmitter. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter. Norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter. If serotonin is too low, norepinephrine's too high, and melatonin's too low, you're not going to sleep. If melatonin is too low, and the other things are somewhat okay, you may struggle with bedtime anxiety. Okay. And then I want to know how we are wired genetically for detoxification and inflammation, because yes, if you're over toxified and you're not releasing those toxins, you're not going to sleep well. If you're over inflamed, you're not going to sleep well. So the bottom line is we need to know how we can best nutritionally support the genes within that specific person who's having these sleep challenges. So that's the second thing. The third thing is I want to determine whether or not they are in chronic fight or flight mode. This is critically important. You see, the autonomic nervous system is broken into two parts: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. You don't need to know those names. The only thing you need to know is that the sympathetic nervous system is a system that you've heard of. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response system in the body. And the parasympathetic system is the rest, digest, and repair system in the body. Now think about this for a minute. If you're trying to go to sleep, which system, which mode do you want to be in? Fight, flight, or freeze, or rest, digest, and repair? Obviously, it's rest, digest, and repair, which is the parasympathetic response system. Okay. So that's the part of our nervous system that lets us wind down, lets us get rest, lets us go to sleep, lets us digest our food, lets us go into repair mode. So, which by the way, deep wave sleep does for us. We go into repair mode during deep wave sleep. But sadly, most people in this day and age, especially in the westernized world, they're in fight or flight all the time. Now, fight or flight mechanism, I've talked about this on previous shows, was designed for, let's say it's a caveman response. It was designed for when a saber-toothed tiger was chasing after you and you had to put it into high gear very quickly in order to survive. We don't need those mechanisms anymore. Okay, we're not constantly under threat. Our food that we're trying to obtain is not trying to kill us. We can simply go to the grocery store and get the food that we need. So there's a disconnect there in this old vestigial nervous system response that puts us into fight or flight. Well, what puts us into fight or flight? Well, it's our lifestyle of work, and no rest, work, and no play. Constantly doing things to overstimulate our nervous system. Okay. Listening to really loud music, do over exercising. You can over exercise, believe it or not, and put yourself into fight or flight. Staying on social media and getting all caught up in news, that puts you in fight or flight, and it creates an adrenaline and a cortisol release that makes you gain weight. So if you're in fight or flight, you're not going to sleep. You're not going to lose weight well. You're going to be insulin resistant. You're going to eventually probably develop type 2 diabetes, or at least be at risk for it. So we need to get these people out of fight or flight. Now in the office, and I can only do this in the office, I have the capability of measuring the activity of that autonomic nervous system in real time. I can see whether a person's in fight or flight or whether or not they're in rest, digest, and repair. Most of the time they're in fight or flight. Once I determine which system they're in, I can then determine which stimulus or vibrational frequency will cause that person to come out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. We call this their constitutional frequency, the one frequency that they need in order to make that flip over into that rest and digest system. Then once I do that, I can overlay that vibrational frequency onto a specific delta wave soundtrack designed to promote deep sleep. So in essence, what we're doing is turning off the fight or flight response, and we're putting the person into deep sleep with their frequency, and it works like a charm every single time. Now, lastly, many people deal with ruminating thoughts. If you're not familiar with the term ruminating is, think of a cow chewing its cud. That's ruminating. They constantly chew on that grass for hours, and that's rumination. But we do that with thoughts sometimes, and these thoughts that go over and over in our head like a hamster wheel, and they're the thoughts that keep us awake at night, the thoughts that keep us from falling to sleep, the thoughts that when we get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and we try to lay back down and go to sleep, and we have this aberrant thought that comes in our head and we can't get it out of our head. Kind of like one of those songs that you don't like, but it comes in your head and you keep humming it all day long. That's the thing. So here is a very simple exercise that I'm going to share with you that will get rid of those intrusive thoughts every single time. This is gold, and I want you to pay attention to this. So if you're listening, if you're not driving, if you're at home or whatever, go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to think about one of those intrusive thoughts. And I want you to name that thought. This is critical. You need to give it a name, because sometimes we deal with this nameless, amorphous stuff in our life all the time. And a lot of them are intrusive thoughts. And we need to name it. We need to give it some acknowledgement. So acknowledge it and name this thought or this intrusive belief or feeling or whatever it is. Give it a name. Then I want you to imagine that you are playing this like a movie reel. That thought, that belief, that emotion, whatever it is that you're dealing with, play it like a movie reel for only 3 to 5 seconds. You don't allow it to just run willy-nilly, run wild. Let it play for about 3 to 5 seconds. And then what I want you to do is imagine that as it's playing, it's passing through your brain and coming out the other side in the form of bubbles. Remember when you were kids and we used to blow bubbles and we would watch them go off in the wind and they would just dissipate and burst? That's what you want to do with this. So you want that named memory or belief or emotion, that intrusive thought. You want to play it like a reel for 3 to 5 seconds. It passes through the brain, comes out the other side in the form of bubbles, and just goes off in the wind. And they either float off completely or they just burst and they just kind of dissipate. And then I want you to pull yourself back into your breath. And I want you to do this. If you're right-handed, again, if you're not driving, this is easier to do. Please don't do this if you're driving. If you're right-handed, I want you to put right wrist on top of left wrist. And I want you to put right ankle on top of your left ankle. Just cross them like that. And I just want you to sit like that, okay? And then I want you to focus on your breath. And I want you to inhale for a count of 4. And I want you to exhale for a count of 8, a slow exhale. And I want you to inhale for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 8. And I want you to do that 4 times. When you get through with this process, you're going to be so calm that I promise you it will work every single time and you'll go back to sleep. Now, sometimes we have these intrusive thoughts that are chained together like a train. Take one of them at a time. So if you got 2 or 3 in a chain because they're kind of linked together, then just take one of them at a time. Do that exercise. Let the next thought come in. Name it. Play it for 3 to 5 seconds. Dissipate away in bubbles. Pull back into your breath with your hands and ankles crossed. Obviously, if you're left-handed, you want left wrist on top, left ankle on top, but you get the gist. That's what we call a specific posture. It's a very old, ancient technique that comes out of Asia. It's around 3,000 years old, and it calms the nervous system down. That specific type of breathing for a 4-count inhale, 8-count exhale is called whiskey breathing. It's also designed to calm down the nervous system. So that works very, very well. You can also use this during your day. You don't have to use it just at night, but you can use this anytime you get those intrusive thoughts. You're getting anxious about something that's going on in your life. Pull in, do that exercise and allow it to dissipate, and then pull back into your breath and calm your nervous system down. That's all I've got for today. If you found this useful, please share this with a friend. Give us a like or a share. We would love that. If you are interested in what the whole genetics piece of this looks like, I've created a boot camp, and I will put that up below. You can see it right there on the screen if you're watching this live. drbriangBrown.com /gene hack /boot camp. And you can go through my free boot camp. It's totally free. It's not going to cost you anything. And you can understand more about what it means to nutritionally support your genes from the bottom up. And as far as the other stuff that I talked about, like measuring your autonomic nervous system in real time, obviously you would have to come to me in order to do that, but I'd be more than happy to do that. So reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Dr. Brian G. Brown. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. As usual, most informed, most trusted, and most grateful that you spent this time with us today. Until next time, stay in the zone. I'm Dr. Brian Brown.